When the Thousand Sons Legion first arrived at their new homeworld, Sorcarius, now known as the Planet of the Sorcerers, they believed they had found something truly precious. It was a planet immersed in empiric energies, and would be a sanctuary for their legion to practice their spellcraft as they wished. They soon discovered that it was not the sanctuary they first thought, but a place of eternal damnation. Their constant delving into the mysteries of the Immaterium had already left the Thousand Sons prone to catastrophic physical mutation, a curse they had fearfully named the Flesh Change. As time passed, they found this horrifying affliction to be accelerating and spreading throughout the Legion at an alarming rate. If nothing was done, and matters were merely left to fate, the entire Legion may have been lost to overwhelming madness and monstrosity. Even Magnus, their own Primarch, did nothing, and was consumed by his own sorcerer studies and his burning desire for vengeance. Instead, it was their former chief librarian, Ahriman, who took it upon himself to save his doomed Legion. The incantation that Ahriman and his most trusted and skilled sorcerers worked on was known as the Rubric, and was the final blow that cast the Thousand Sons into an unending and unescapable damnation. The spell possessed immense depth and power, and was far beyond the skill of the sorcerers who wielded it. Even with their heightened level of arcane knowledge, they could not foresee its drastic side effects. The Rubric did however succeed in repressing the Flesh Change, but its cost was severe. As punishment for what Ahriman had unleashed, Magnus banished him until his once favoured Jean's son could complete the impossible task of comprehending the true nature of Tzeentch. Ahriman would now focus his efforts towards a single goal. He would find a way to restore his legion to their once former glory, by undoing the terrible changes wrought upon them by his own hand. Not only this, but Ahriman intended to elevate them to a position of power not known since before the Emperor set his wolves upon them. Since then, the Arch-Sorcerer has left a trail of ruin wherever he ventures. He gathers all manner of renegades and Tzeentch worshippers to his cause, which he often uses to practice and advance his arcane powers. Ahriman believes with absolute conviction that he is the one who must decipher the puzzle of restoring his brothers, and he will use any means necessary, no matter how terrible, providing it will aid him in his ultimate goal. To his enemies, Ahriman's forbidden acts of desecration may seem to be without reason, but in reality, his intelligence and cunning rivals that of Magnus himself. When the energy of the warp contacts and interacts with real space, its influence is manifested throughout mutation and change. Unbound and unstable, this empiric energy twists all it touches. Some changes appear as powerful gifts that enhance their recipients with powers beyond belief, while the less favoured curses reduce even the most powerful sorcerers to twisted wrecks of hulking flesh and jagged bone, resembling nothing of their once former self. The Thousand Sons Legion has been afflicted by mutation and change for what seems like an eternity. However, the Rubric of Ahriman was arguably the greatest single change ever inflicted upon them. For many Sons of Magnus, it was also the last. The spell's binding energies transformed the Traitor Legion from a brotherhood of battle mages into something entirely different. Few doubt that Ahriman and his cabal saved their legion from a final descent into unspeakable horror, yet the fate which they sentenced their brothers to was, in many ways, infinitely worse. In an attempt to shroud their activities from Magnus, Ahriman's cabal of sorcerers performed their rituals under the concealment of magical wards and glamours of incredible potency. This allowed them to operate in secrecy without their Primarch's approval. Under normal circumstances, this may not have been enough to elude Magnus, had he not been otherwise consumed by his lust for vengeance and endless desire for knowledge. Perhaps even the catastrophic events of the Horus Heresy may have helped to shroud Ahriman's intentions until it was too late for Magnus to stop him. The Rubric of Ahriman was perhaps the most powerful and violent spell to have ever been unleashed by the Thousand Sons. Its strength was so incomprehensible that it sent a howling shockwave rippling through the warp, and engulfed the planet of the sorcerers in a catastrophic superstorm of sorcery. The very fabric of reality buckled as the strands of fate were twisted and manipulated under the spell's grasp. The skies above the surface broke out in a series of severe lightning strikes that blasted the Thousand Sons warriors in a flash of blinding light. After witnessing the ensuing madness, Magnus himself intervened and called upon the powers of Tzeentch to put an end to the onslaught. By then, the damage was already done. Every single Thousand Sons warrior struck by the sorcerous bolts of energy had been reduced to dust, sealed within their suits of battle armour by the Rubric's energies. Their former minds and souls had become mere spectres, doomed to haunt their cursed armour forever. The Thousand Sons would no longer be slaves to change and mutation. Instead, they became lifeless servants to their former sorcerers, who were left unharmed by the Rubric, with their magical abilities greatly enhanced. And so, the Thousand Sons Legion was permanently transformed, cursed to the form it still wears to this day. Many expected that Magnus would have slain Ahriman and his cabal after such a betrayal, but this was not the will of Tzeentch. Instead, the Crimson King chose to banish his former chief librarian and favour Jean's son, and set about salvaging what now remained of his legion. The Thousand Sons were now divided in two halves. The sorcerers, having retained their full sentience and cunning, had been vastly enhanced by the Rubric. They became champions of Magnus and the Legion's new commanders. The rest of the Legion, the Rubrici, who were now nothing but hollow shells, became the ghostly foot soldiers of the Thousand Sons. The binding empiric energies allowed their armour to retain some form of animation as they responded to commands and direction from only those who could utter their true names. They became the walking weapons of their sorcerous masters, who in turn swore to follow the will of Magnus. However, due to their thirst for arcane power, it was often their own selfish ambitions they served. Once the Rubric of Ahriman had taken hold of his legion, Magnus began to fear that its future would soon meet its end. New Space Marines are created from promising subjects through gene implantation and genetic enhancement. This process allows the legions to maintain their strength and replenish their losses. For the Rubrici, all was now dust, and their gene seed harvested from fallen sorcerers would only mix with the recruits that possessed a keen psychic talent. This led to an incredibly small recruitment pool, which could never keep pace with the attrition of war. The Thousand Sons would not allow themselves to simply fade from existence, and learned of a way to overcome their recruitment problems. They mastered the use of a powerful piece of magic known as the Rituals of Rebinding. This highly perilous and dark magic could re-manifest the souls of fallen warriors back into their pieced together armour, allowing them to once again rise from the dust. And so, as long as a single sorcerer remained to scavenge the fallen Rubrici from lost battlefields, and perform the correct rituals, The Thousand Sons Legion will continue to exist in a state of cursed immortality,